Hello, scaredy cats. Welcome to Jump Scare, the weekly show where I bring you into the frightening world of horror. I am your host, Cierra Caballero. This video is going to have a lot of feelings because I'm going to give you an exclusive review of The Mummy. But before I go into my review on The Mummy, let's go back in time. Well, the Universal Monsters are returning, but with the disappointing turnout and reviews for the new Mummy, what does that mean for the Dark Universe? Universal dipped its toe in the world of monsters and macabre in the 1920s with their classic silent films Hunchback of Notre Dame in 1923 and Phantom of the Opera in 1925, both starring the late Lon Chaney. These films were produced by the founder of Universal, Carl Laemmle. Soon in the 1930s, Carl Laemmle's son, Carl Laemmle Jr., began to take charge producing the bulk of Universal's most prominent horror films, including his first, Dracula, 1931, starring newcomer Bela Lugosi. Carl Laemmle Jr. had quite the reputation for spending too much money on his films that did not earn back their costs, but who's laughing now? The man who laughs, that's who. This would later lead to father and son being forced out of the company, but everything that they did at Universal will live forever in our memories and on our TV screens. After the success of Dracula, however, the horror machine began, with Frankenstein within the same year as Dracula, The Mummy in the next year, Old Dark House, The Invisible Man, and Bride of Frankenstein, all of which became icons and entrenched in our minds and, of course, our hearts. After the dismissal of the Laemmles, Universal, of course, continued the monster films, including The Creature from the Black Lagoon and The Wolfman. But let's talk about The Mummy. The original The Mummy, directed by Karl Freund, starred Boris Karloff as Imhotep. Imhotep was a hopeless romantic, and he disguises himself as a wealthy man searching Egypt for his long-lost love, who believes has been reincarnated as the beautiful Helen Grosvenor. The film is a classic and is excellent and still holds up. I actually watched it last night. And then, of course, the series that I grew up with, these guys, Stephen Sommers later revitalized the film in 1999 with Brendan Fraser. The Mummy inspired several spin-offs like The Scorpion King and of course the sequels, well, The Mummy Returns and The Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, but I don't have that one because it does not exist in my book because it's terrible and Rachel Weisz is not in it. But that's not the film we're reviewing. The film was both terrifying and campy, and he made the franchise more serialized, much like Indiana Jones, and it was funny when it was supposed to be funny, and it was scary when it was supposed to be scary. And I watched those films every Halloween with my family, and they are some of my favorite films, and I cherish them for all the good memories. And of course, they have good dialogue. Well, The Mummy returned this year, directed by Alex Kurtzman, and the film is a new take on the mythology set in present day. While the 1999 film was set in the 1920s, despite its attempt at opening a new imagining of the Dark Universe, I believe it missed the mark. Alright guys, now by the way, if you haven't seen The Mummy yet, just know that this part of the video is going to be riddled with spoilers, but if you have seen the film, prepare yourself because I'm about to rip it a new one. I'm about to rip it apart, essentially. Well, let's go. If you haven't seen the film, click off now. Alright, so the film opens up pretty good. Like, the action sequence I thought wasn't that bad. It kind of made me reminisce about the old films, but things seem to happen a little bit too conveniently, and I don't know, it was kind of unbelievable at best. And of course there was an airstrike, and then of course there's a big hole in the ground, and then all of a sudden they find this big face that's Egyptian, and they're like, maybe we should search it and discover what's inside of there. But we can't do that yet because we need specialists, and that is when the female protagonist and love interest enters the frame. But she can't have a regular old introduction. No. First of all, we have to, state that she's very, very smart. She's really intelligent. I get that. But why does she have to immediately state that her and Tom Cruise just got done having sex? And basically was like, oh, you lasted 15 seconds. And also, why did you take my map? I want my map back. They could have left the dialogue at just talking about the map, because that's the main focus of the conversation, and that's supposed to lead us into the next part of the story, and that is how Tom Cruise and his friend Nick from New Girl got there in the first place. But anyway, so that is how we are introduced to the female protagonist, is them talking about their sex life, which I thought was completely unnecessary, and I didn't think it was all that funny, and it was supposed to be funny. And I thought that the humor throughout the film was very forced, and I love Jake Johnson. He's fantastic as Nick in New Girl. However, I felt like in the film, he was playing Nick from New Girl. His character and being didn't necessarily change, and sadly, his character served no purpose at all. I felt like his character he was supposed to be the comic relief. He was supposed to be the buddy type of guy, but it fell flat, and I just felt like there was no purpose for him being there. And of course, he turns into some sort of ghostly zombie figure, and who kind of guides Nick along the way to help. And of course, Chris Val has to work for Ahmanet and lead Nick to his demise. And I really think that the film should have focused on Ahmanet, because Ahmanet was the most interesting character in the entire movie and actually had a pretty complex backstory. And I mean, the original Mummy films focused on the monster. If you focus on the monster, that's what you're supposed to do. And the entire film focused on who? Tom Cruise. And I guess to justify that, at the end, they made him the god of death or some sort of devil figure, or I guess Anubis, or they never really clarified what exactly he is. Maybe I just tuned out, but I don't know if he will serve any purpose in future films, or if we may never really get an answer as to what Tom Cruise is gonna be doing in the Mummy franchise in the future. But I really do believe that Ahmanet had the best scenes. I really enjoyed the scene near the little house where the plane crash happened, and she's eating the souls and beings of all these men and cops who are trying to find all the dead bodies, and she sucks out their energy and of course restores her beauty so that she can find Nick and the little sword thing. So that's pretty cool. She does some cool things. I think that Sofia Boutella is an incredible actress, and I really liked her in Kingsman. So it was exciting to see her as the first female mummy. But I think that the film should have really focused in on her rather than on Tom Cruise. I thought the dialogue really fell flat, and I didn't find the film all that funny, and it was very forced. Also, Russell Crowe's Jekyll and Hyde was an interesting way of going about it. He has to stab himself in the hand or body with some sort of serum so that he can change back into Jekyll and not let Hyde take over him. And I thought that was a really interesting thing. But obviously, maybe we'll see more of that. I don't know if Jekyll, Hyde, I have a feeling, since they sort of established that there's this big monster science factory place, it's gonna be a running thing throughout the Dark Universe, but we will see. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of The Mummy. I tried to do a compliment sandwich, but I obviously did not enjoy the film all that much, but I think there was a lot of potential, and I think it had a good story-ish, but it fell flat. But let me know in the comments below what you think of the film and what your favorite Mummy film is. And be sure to like and subscribe to the PNTV channel on YouTube and check out our Patreon for bonus content. Also, check out our merch store at popnerdtv.store where we have jump scare merch and Irene and Bernice merch. Raindrop, lemon drop. And a huge special thanks goes to our sponsor, Famous Monsters of Filmland. And until next time, stay spooky, my friends.